This week, we will take a look at how public libraries serve the mentally ill. Looking through the literature, it is striking how often the mentally ill are tagged as problems to libraries and librarians. The mentally ill are frequently lumped into what the profession terms problem patrons, a category that includes the unreasonable, the aggressive, the homeless, the unattended child, the wild teenager, and just about anyone else who is thought of as disturbing the library staff and other patrons. A reference librarian I know framed the reality of reference work in a public library this way. How do you feel about working with the mentally ill? Many of the adults we deal with are diagnosable. Is that what you want to do? She went on to say that she loved her work and much preferred working adult reference to working with teens, her least favorite job, and my current one. How do the reference librarians handle this, given that training in mental health issues is not typically part of the library school curriculum? Given the reality of public libraries today, I feel that it should be. The job is rooted in the ideal of public service, and the truth is that many of the patrons we serve suffer from various types of mental illness. Library students and staff need to be prepared for this reality. We are librarians, not mental health professionals. The best approach is recognize that limitation and use the librarian's skill as a provider of calm and professional service as a tool when interacting with these patrons. All of the typical tools of the trade, friendliness, helpfulness, politeness, remember the RUSA guidelines, should be put to use here. Provide service, not therapy. And if inappropriate behavior interferes with other patrons' ability to use the library, take steps to enforce the library's behavioral policy. One of the frequently cited resources I found is a handbook that dates back to 1996, Patron Behavior in Libraries, a handbook of positive approaches to negative situations. Although it is not recent, it is still relevant and representative of thought regarding policy development as a tool for dealing with mentally ill patrons. It is one of this week's required readings. The chapter on mentally ill patrons explores the stigma and fears surrounding mental illness. They advocate staff training to demystify mental illness and to help staff assess whether a mentally ill patient's behavior is odd but harmless or odd and signifies a potential threat. Staff training is stressed as a means of helping staff learn to defuse situations, when to seek additional help, and when and how to approach the mentally ill patron as simply someone who might need a reminder about the library's behavior policies. Learning to assess risk is identified as a critical skill for library staff. This means staff needs a basic understanding of types of mental illness so they can understand who might pose a threat and who will most likely respond positively to boundaries and structure. Library policy should be developed to guide the staff about what behaviors require intervention. A well-developed policy will guide the staff in the moment and also provide a framework for the sanctions after the fact. Incidents should be documented and shared widely among staff. When the dust has settled, library supervisors should support their staff with the appropriate determinations. If the patron's offense warrants it, they may be suspended or even barred. In my library, we are encouraged to call the police if a patron continues to be disruptive and refuses to leave when told to do so. The other required article, Who Says There is a Problem? A New Way to Approach the Issue of Problem Patrons, was published in 2010. It borrows a theoretical framework from the nursing literature on problem patients, which examines the interactions between the nurse, the patient, the hospital, the philosophy or mission of care delivery, the patient's expectations and previous life experiences, among other factors. As you read Farrell, think about what she says about librarianship being a reflective practice and how that applies to our interactions with mentally ill patrons. Her library-level solutions regarding policy development, enforcement, and dissemination will sound familiar if you read the handbook chapter first. Not much has changed since 1996. Her take on the interpersonal level offers a more nuanced picture of the librarian's role in interactions with problem patrons. Farrell emphasizes that the behaviors are the problem, not the people. She points out that labeling problem patrons is often a self-fulfilling prophecy. Labels are stigmatizing, and problem patrons may respond to feeling stigmatized by becoming an even bigger problem, more antagonistic, more aggressive, etc. She advocates that LIS professionals take the focus off the patron and examine how policy, staff, and community contribute to the problem. Think about how you would take those reflections and build a policy and staff to keep your library working for everyone. The single most useful idea I found came not from the academic literature, but from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, an advocacy group for people with mental illness. See the person and not the illness. This is the second step of the Stigma-Free Pledge, which you will explore in the first activity.
If I had my own way, you'd be with me here today. But I rarely have my own way. I guess that's why you're not here with me today. And the librarian said, you can't buy no respect. I said, hey lady, what can you expect when I'm lying on